when you don't have to mention the name of the partner, but you mentioned if you went into a large partner, I said to you, why don't you just go to the CEO, the top person at the partner, and just say, use extreme against your whole of your customer base. But that wouldn't be your method. You might just try and target one small little department. And I was thinking, that doesn't sound like it makes sense to me. It doesn't sound like it, but I'm not in the channel. So I'm thinking I've just gone to the top person and tried to work down. But that's not always the best method, is it, for you?
It's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's, like I said to you before, there's a multi-pronged approach and a discussion point and a different type of person that needs to have a different type of conversation depending on who you are within that organisation. But those larger partners tend to have a tiered situation with their vendors. So in the same way that we do with partners have it with their vendors. So if you're a tier 1 vendor, obviously there's going to be maybe 3 to 5 in that top tier, but you have to be doing a certain amount of revenue with that partner. You're not going to feature on that top tier that then would get things like exec engagement, that pay-to-play type situation. You're not going to get that focus or that time from those people unless you're sort of moving your way up those tiers. So which is why we start with the larger types of partners, and I can mention people like, we know who we're talking about, people like Computer Centre, Softcat, people like that, who have a fantastic organisation, but you kind of need to sort of start somewhere. So we tend to work in silos with specific teams so that we've got the focus, like I said to you before, of all the relevant people within my UK region, and then we can focus some campaigns, build that business, get some pipeline, get some good wins under our belts, and then you can move up that.
When you mean pay to play, do you excuse me ignorance for it, when you mean pay to play, you mean the success and wins that you're doing and the more revenue you're doing with that partner gets you to a higher level of engagement within that company? You can't just go to Mike and say, Mike, put me as tier 1 and
absolutely not.
I'll take you out for lunch.
Because you'd be like, what? Yeah. Who are you?
That's why it's been going wrong with me. That's what I do. My method isn't working.
It's not. I think you would want to go something that says, look, me personally, I can't speak for everybody, but I would like to go with something tangible and say, look, this is what we've been doing. We've had success in this area. We'd like to actually now expand it out because this worked. So it's
internal
more about
case
demonstrating.
studies. Yeah.
Demonstrating the value that you've brought, the partnership that you've built, and where you can see where this could go. Then you've got something tangible to discuss with one of the execs. But I wouldn't ever go top down, because you haven't got any relationships. You've got no kind of real gravitas. No. And like I said, although Extreme are in the top right in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, we're certainly not the biggest of those 4. We're small and mighty, but we're certainly not the biggest. So,
Holly, when I have a female leader on the show, I'm always asked to really challenge them about if they've either experienced positive discrimination, whether they feel they've been stopped for promotion, or there's been a ceiling where they've had to move company, etc. And I get that because I'm in a recruitment company, they normally say to me, oh, well, that person hasn't got this job for that reason, or that person hasn't got this job for this reason. So as you're here, I want to challenge you. Have you ever experienced any situations where you felt you don't have to say the company, but you felt you had to leave a company, or there's that positive discrimination where you think, because I'll give an example. I had a candidate ring me the other day and saying, Mark, are all these top jobs, is it just an old boys club? Is it just going jobs for the boys and I can't get in? And I sort of sat there and I sort of paused for a minute and I thought, I don't know. I don't know sometimes, because some of the jobs don't get advertised and some of the jobs don't get put out to market. And it could be friends of people. You mentioned there the job you got, and you think, oh, you knew John, etc. And if someone might say to me, oh, well, Holly only got that job because she knew John. And I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know if she only got the job because she knew John. I don't know. So have you ever experienced where you thought, do you know what, I'm getting discriminated, or you feel like someone said she's been positively discriminated for the job? Do you ever get that?
I've personally never put it down to anything like that. And that's probably more about me than it is about anything else. I would prefer not to look at things in that way. That doesn't mean to say that hasn't happened. It just is certainly that I I wouldn't ponder for too long on that, because I don't feel that that's very healthy. And again, I can only speak for me. I don't feel it's very healthy for me. I'd rather think, well, I know I'm good at what I do. I know I'm good at my job. I know I put all of the effort that I need to put into it, and I know I know I'm good. So I'm gonna stand by what I feel about myself. And yes, of course, there are situations where we spoke about it before, where I've not applied for a job because I haven't ticked every single box, and then I've gone, maybe they're not gonna, maybe they're gonna think, oh well, she's not ticking all the boxes. So, but as you said before, you'll get guys that tick no boxes, or maybe one box, and they'll go for the job.
That happens all the time, Holly. We have it where we get applications for jobs, leadership positions. No relevant experience. One out of the 10, and the males apply. That's my experience, and yet I'll have calls from female leaders, not just people in leadership. Mark, I haven't got the 10. I've got 7 of the 10. That's 6 more than the previous applicant. Please apply. Why does that happen? Why don't more females, when they've got the qualifications, they've got the experience, they've got every single attribute, but they almost talk themselves out of it when they read the job descriptions. Why do they do that?
I think it's a lack of confidence, because we're getting told, not just being told, but bombarded continuously with the diversity and inclusion piece, and the fact that we're not diverse and inclusive enough. And it's kind of almost, I think it's almost kind of imploded in itself a bit. Like, it's almost kind of gone backwards in the fact that it's almost putting people off, in that, well, am I going to get the job just because I'm fitting a quota, a diversity and inclusion quota? I don't want to do that either. I just want to be measured on me and what I'm presenting, so what I'm showing you right now, but also on my previous history, on what I've done. And I think it does take a type of company, because I think a lot of it's got to do with the company culture. So Extreme, we've got an incredibly good company culture, and it's one of the best that I've experienced, but not because they're constantly saying this is what we are, so therefore we are. It's because there's actual actions happening.
You're living it.
Yeah. So there's things that you can see, and obviously they're inch by inch steps forward. Then nothing happens, like we were saying before, nothing happens vastly different in a very short space of time. But I also think that's good, because it means it stays like it is. It stays solid. It stays moving forward. So it does depend on a company culture, and I have worked for organisations that have a terrible culture. The one before that I mentioned that began with L, and that is, unfortunately, but it's historical. These are things that, and unless it happens from the top and it's a top-down approach, it's not going to change. But for me, it's about confidence, and I would hope and I would wish for more diversity in terms of people coming forward and not worrying so much about what their historical situation has been, in terms of whether they've got the right qualifications, as an example, because you can learn. Everyone's capable of learning. Like, I didn't come into each of these roles knowing what on earth was going on. I hadn't got a clue.
Because my next question was, what are you guys
Some might still, I don't. Who knows?
I was going to say, what are Extreme doing to attract people into the industry that are maybe from a non-technology base? And then I heard a rumour that you're going to confirm is true, I believe, that this year or recently your last hire was a window cleaner.
Yes, a rumour.
Which is amazing. So, but I was actually thinking, well, that person can't have come from a recruiter because they got quashed at the CV stage. So, tell me about that. You've actually recently employed a window cleaner into the industry, which is amazing.
Yes, into my team. So, yes, you're right. It wasn't. He hadn't come from a recruiter. He'd come through as a referral. Now, we encourage referrals, as do most companies. We pay people for a referral that when they stay in an organisation for 6 months. I think that's pretty standard, has been ever since I've been working, and Extreme are no different. So it was a referral from another person who works within our organisation. But it wasn't a case of, in the same way I was referred forward, there were a number of people going for the role. I had 10, 11 people to interview, came from all sorts of walks of life. What I would say is all of those, not a single female came forward. Not a single CV from a female, which was worrying for me and also disappointing, because I would have liked to have been able to have more diversity and inclusion from that point of view. But he was one of the best candidates, and he was a window cleaner, but it was his own company, so he was entrepreneurial in his essence, in that he built the company up himself. But he wanted to change industry. He wanted to work in tech. Is interested in it, and demonstrated that he could learn. And so it was actually his personality and his characteristics within his personality that drove me to offer him the role, and quite happily he accepted. And he's only been here a couple of months, but he's working out quite well for somebody who's never been in tech.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I like to give people opportunities that, maybe they wouldn't have got before.
Talking of opportunities, where do you see the biggest opportunity for Extreme in 2023? Where's the market going for you guys?
Well, personally, the biggest opportunity is for us, mid-market enterprise. Wow. If you're talking about from an end user perspective, we're strong in certain verticals. We're strong in public sector. Although I think one of the things we were talking about before was areas of the economy that are struggling, and that certainly is one. So funding that's coming from the government and how it's being apportioned and where it's going, and it's become very the process has become a lot longer. We're doing very well in education. Our head of education is incredibly proactive and very passionate, and she's driving that industry really, really well. So we're doing well on that side. But actually, from an emerging point of view, is that mid-market enterprise that we're really having a focus on now with our partners, is starting to really explode. And it's obviously the largest opportunity from a UK perspective in terms of the money that is spent in those areas by the actual customers themselves. So that's for us for the rest of 2023. Even though we've only got a couple of months left in our financial year.
2 months left, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And my last question, if someone wanted to emulate your career, Holly, and I mentioned at lunch almost like cutting out the shortcuts, make it, there is no shortcut to the career, but if they could actually get some lessons where they thought, you know what, I've made that mistake, or I would have done that, or I've got a mentor, or I tried to climb the ladder a bit quicker, how could they emulate your career? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, we did touch upon this, and I think I think the mentor piece is really important, because when I started, there was no such thing as mentors. I mean, it was just kind of like,
get on with it.
Here's a carrot and here's a stick, and we'll pay you well, but we're gonna beat you at the same time. Not literally. No one got hit. It was more around you as a person. So for me, what has held me in the best stead is not knowledge about technology. It's not knowing, what goes with what, or any of those things, or which technology needs to be sold with what technology. It's more about actually really basic stuff, like listening to what people are saying. Instead of talking all the time. I know we've just talked for half an hour, but it's about being trustworthy. It's about having a bit of humility and being a bit humble. It's not about shouting out how great you are. It's a little bit more stealthy than that. And I think if you're more human to another human, you've got a much better chance of building a relationship, because it's all about relationships, right? If you have a good relationship, good trusting relationship with someone, then it really has no other way than moving forward. Being honest.
Yeah, because those fundamental raw human skills that were so necessary 20, 30 years ago are still prevalent today, aren't they?
100%. People don't want to be, can I say bullshitted?
Yeah.
This isn't.
You won't be censored for that, Holly.
This isn't children TV. This is Bother Watershed. People don't like being told rubbish. Most people can see through it. So what's the point? Just be honest. as to where you stand with certain things. Sometimes you will win, and sometimes you won't. In the fact that if you're honest, someone else might be dishonest, and ultimately the person will get let down in the long run. It just might take them a little bit longer to realise that you were the one that they wanted to talk to in the first place. And sometimes you have to accept that you're not going to get everything. So, yeah.
Brilliant. We'll leave it there.
Be a decent person.
Be a decent person. Holly, thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome.